I'm Terry Owens. On this edition of MTA Commuter Connections, we'll visit the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History in Baltimore for a look at some of the wonderful things they've got planned for Black History Month. Also coming up, some passenger safety tips, and we'll answer your transit-related questions. All ahead on MTA Commuter Connections. Welcome to the MTA Commuter Connections. I'm Terry Owens. For this edition, we're on location at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History in Baltimore, where Maryland and our country's history is chronicled and on display. With February being Black History Month, this museum is definitely a place to bring the entire family for a day or several days of enlightenment and fun. Dr. Skip Sanders is the museum's director, and he joins us now with a look at what we'll find on a visit here. Dr. Sanders, good to see you.
Good to see you always.
Thank you so much for inviting us in.
Cultural home.
Yes. Now, for people who are not familiar with the museum, give us a sense of what they can expect to find here.
Well, they can find, first of all, one of the real architectural treasures in the city. It's a magnificent building, as you can see. 82,000 square feet. Over 15,000 square feet of exhibition space. And we have a permanent exhibition on the third floor, which of course really details Maryland's iconic legacy of African American history. Where we are now in our temporary exhibition hall, this is an exhibition area that changes on I guess a few times a year, and we bring in special kinds of exhibitions, such as this magnificent one on display now.
We'll talk about Mr. Collier's work in just a moment, but you know, as you said, every day is a celebration of African American history here at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. But talk about some of the things you've got planned for February. Well,
I would say the two anchors for February would be the exhibition that we've just opened that we're going to talk about. The other one is February 23rd, Saturday. Verizon has been a real friend of the Reginald F. Lewis for years, and they always sponsor an open house, which is free to everyone. And with that open house, they plan all kinds of surprising events and activities. So if those are the two sort of anchor events that go on, in between those events, there's several exciting things. We have a kind of speaker series called Generations, and we also have Saturday's Child, which is for children. So on one of the Saturdays, we're going to have Janice the Griot come in and do folk tales with our children, and then she'll talk about how African Americans embedded values, cultural values, in those folk tales about animals. It will end with children singing, of course, and doing some folk tale creating of their own. So we've got exciting events like that.
We'd be remiss if we did not say something about the man for whom the museum is named. Talk about Reginald Lewis and his legacy.
What a great legacy. Mr. Lewis did more in the 50 years of his life than most of us would do in 2 lives.
Wow.
And he was a native Baltimorean, grew up initially not far from here on Dallas Street, a little small street in Baltimore. Came from a family of very modest means like most of us, and grew to be basically a billionaire by the end of his life. He did a leveraged buyout of Beatrice, a company which was largely based in Europe. But before that, he'd done a $22.5 million purchase of the McCall Pattern Company, and actually made that business so strong and so profitable, he reaped like a $90 million profit on it. So if you're an entrepreneur or businessman, he is your icon.
You have to know that story. Now, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I want you to touch on the exhibit that we're standing in now. Mr. Collier, Brian Collier?
Yes, I'd be happy to. You know, we say that we really focus on the iconic people that have come out of Maryland and influenced our culture and our history. Brian Collier is one. He was born in Pocomoke, Maryland, on our eastern shore, not too far from Ocean City. Was really influenced by the works of people like Ezra Jack Keats in terms of his childhood reading A Snowy Day, Harold and the Purple Crayon. So when he grew up, he knew what he wanted to do, and as you can see, he works magnificently by doing a blending of collage and watercolor. It's really masterful. And you can tell his themes as you move through this exhibit of over 40 of his works, which are illustrations for children's books. And he's also an award winner. As a matter of fact, just last week he won the Coretta Scott King 2000.
Get out of here.
Yeah, 13 award, okay, for illustrations. He loved doing urbanscapes, so you notice the brownstones that are on this part. Did stories based on our heroes, John Lennon right behind us, but also Langston Hughes, President Barack Obama. So just the great people that have influenced, you know, our lives and our history.
Good. So
yeah.
February going to be, as every day is, but February going to be a very special month.
February very special
Reginald
because we're
Museum.
even more alive. We'll be worn out by March 1st.
And we love it, of course, because it's right off a number of transit lines. The metro's
Yes.
right up the way. There are a number of bus lines. that go right
Circulator
behind.
stops right here, so no excuse not to come and visit your cultural home. We make it a homecoming when you come in.
Fantastic. Dr. Sanders, thank you so much for allowing us in.
Thank you. You're always welcome. It's your home.
Okay, thank you. In observance of Black History Month, we recently sat down with one of MTA's first African-American transit operators, who later became one of the agency's first black managers. His name is Burtram Dailey. The story Mr. Dailey tells is an interesting one that's part of MTA's history and transit's rich history.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around.
The year was 1955. Public transportation in Baltimore was still being run by the privately owned Baltimore Transit Company, and the newly married Burtram Dailey needed a job. The Carver grad had already been rejected once by the BTC, but the company had broken the color line years earlier, and Dailey's wife urged him to try again. Advice that paid off.
I started as a streetcar / bus operator. And I worked out of Belvedere Barn, up on Belvedere, right near Ricestown Road. And that barn was a combination, streetcars and buses. So sometime in the morning I would operate a streetcar, and then my second part in the evening I would drive a bus.
While newspaper headlines chronicle the hiring of tan drivers, Dailey says he was merely grateful for a job that allowed him to provide for his family.
When you enjoy whatever you do in life, you have no complaints. Sure. And I enjoyed people, I enjoyed the job.
It was that attitude and a prank by coworkers that led Dailey into management.
I told them point blank, if the man offered that job to me, I would take that job.
That boast was relayed to Dailey's boss, and in 1963, the same year as the historic March on Washington, Dailey moved into management.
My greatest achievement is trying to encourage other young people to come MTA's way. Yes. And not only come to MTA, but come to MTA with the spirit of doing your level best in whatever position you have.
Up next, a look at what our region's transit police are doing to address a growing crime problem. Stay with us, we'll be right back.